just if people miss it, it can be on the website. So just to kind of keep that way, we have them. We can just have the recordings. So it's now recorded.
I'm not website prepared, but okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. You look great, Mayor. Okay.
All right.
That out.
No worries. But thank you all. We had a great meeting last month and just want to stay in touch. There may not be a ton of updates this time around, but it's just important because 2026 is right around the corner that we stay in close contact, especially with some of the ideas that we discussed and might need some additional work. So with that in mind, we're called to order. And Mr. Jeffries, do you want to lead us through some of the updates since the September 15th meeting, I think that was?
Sure, no problem. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I just have some brief updates on my side. So, since the last meeting, I did reach out to the Bladensburg Waterfront Park to confirm with Rob that the July 2nd date will be the fireworks event. I just have to send over the letter to the new director of MNCPPC just to request formal permission, but Rob already has that date locked down. And Sankofa Mobile Museum will be there on July 2nd. They confirmed that. And I did reach out to the Star Spangled Banner Mobile Museum, but I'm just waiting to get an answer for that event. That's all the updates I have for today. And next time I will invite Dr. McElrath. Sorry, Mayor, you can pronounce it better. I'll invite him to the next meeting.
Yes, I thought about that too. What I'll do is once we wrap up, send him a note, as well as Joni from University of Maryland, so they can join us next time. They are part of the history department over at the University of Maryland, and Professor McElrath in particular is an expert on Bladensburg history. So he's a good resource for any sort of efforts that we're putting forward for next year. As far as the Maryland 250 celebration, I shared with the group at the meeting last month during this year's Black History Month program. He gave a fantastic presentation and educational lecture on African Americans' contributions to Bladensburg, which is something that we don't often hear about, and highlighted a tavern that was operated and owned by a woman who was a freed slave, obviously a woman of color, and how it was one of the most thriving businesses in this area and was potentially visited by former President George Washington. So to have that level of depth to the history that we're adding to the events next year, I think will give us a strong opportunity to really help the community understand how rich our heritage is, and to not always associate Blacks who were in this area in the 17 and 1800s as only being slaves, but while we share that story, but to also share the success stories of Blacks who were free, who had thriving entrepreneurial opportunities going, who were strong sources of economic opportunities as well. So we just want to make sure we're telling the whole story. And then also see if he can connect us to someone who can take us even further back to the Native American history that is tied to this area, because they were here first before colonialization happened. And so we want to make sure that we're being respectful of that history and bringing that to the forefront as well. So any questions about that? Okay. Other thing, I'm just going back to the notes from last month. We did have Megan Bacco on from ATHA, and she is a part of the Prince George's County 250 Commission and was encouraging people to attend those meetings. And so as we get the calendar invites, we can forward those to you in case you want to tune in and listen to the updates on what the county has planned for next year. One of the highlights that Megan mentioned was the May 30th celebration that's taking place in 2026. It's the Bowie celebration, and they're being intentional about not lumping it on the July 4th holiday or too close to it, just given the number of other celebrations that'll be happening at that point. But at the Bowie Branch Library and Performing Arts Center, there'll be a historical and cultural program taking place there. So I don't see Megan on this time, so likely she'll be on the next time and can give a little bit more information there if folks are interested. Any
Valerie from
questions?
Athos should be joining us today, but maybe
Okay.
later on.
Okay, sounds good. And then the other thing that Megan mentioned is there is a genealogy education initiative that will launch in 2026. And this has been done in partnership with the Prince George's County Geological Society and the African American Genealogical Society. And so I believe there's a particular area that they're targeting with this project. I want to say Southern Maryland. And so it'll be interesting to hear more as it unfolds. And again, if folks are interested in collaborating on that under the 250 County Commission, you'll be given that opportunity as well.
Mayor James, sorry,
Uh-huh.
can you give that information, just the details one last time? I missed it, the bell rang.
That's okay. This
where.
is, yeah, so the Prince George's County, Maryland 250 Commission
Yes.
is planning a big celebration with the city of Bowie on May 30th, 2026.
Okay, and then you said the Southern Maryland one?
Yes, and then they are also planning to launch a genealogy education initiative in 2026, and that's in partnership with the Prince George's County Genealogical Society and the African American Genealogical Society.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much on that.
Yeah, no worries. Let's see, she did note that those meetings, well, that they're planning to have a hybrid delivery format. But again, Megan Bacco is our representative on the county commission. If Valerie joins, she can give us more information about it. Otherwise, we can ask Megan for more information at our next meeting. One of the things that we also discussed last time was opportunities to curate Bladensburg history and make it available to the public. And I mentioned how the city of Rockville has these audio tours where it's self-guided. The information is pre-recorded. It's sort of on a website, but the historical markers are there and you can scan a QR code or go to a link that's posted to learn more about the history of a site. And so I'm hoping by engaging Professor McElrath, we can do something similar in our community because we have so many historic sites. And I think it would be interesting. I'm thinking about Elizabeth Seton, Mrs. Borsico, and the history of that site, because it is remarkable how the Daughters of Charity purchased that land and so forth. So that is just an example of a site that could be interesting to add on, in addition to the Bostwick House or the George Washington House. We have such a robust history that I think there's a lot there that this group could really help say, maybe these are the top 10 things that we'd like to highlight in the town. And we can always grow it from there, but at least to say for 2026, as we put this audio tour together, we want to at least start with highlighting these 10 important historical markers in the community. And so just with that in mind, if you could start thinking of some historic sites that would be prominent to include. For example, our post office just celebrated 250 years of operation. Oh, go ahead, Ms. White. I'm sorry. I saw you waving.
No, I just wanted to give my shout out. I love them. Yeah.
Awesome. But that I think is a very prominent addition to an audio tour highlighting the depth of Bladensburg's history. Ms. Capone, I don't know how far back our library goes, but that could be something interesting from the little tiny schoolhouse looking library that we used to have, just highlighting do we even know where the first library was in the town and then how that evolved into what we have today?
Yes, we do have a history of Bladensburg Library and where it was in a storefront earlier. I don't know the details, but we do have people, probably maybe even people here today who have those details. And of course, it's just like a monument to the history of the port town anyway. I mean, it pays homage to the history of the port town now in its current form. I wanted to ask for the video tour. You said you have a professor that you're working with. We've done something similar in as sort of a test project in Hyattsville. And I don't know if they have a place where that information will sit, because I'm sure Paul is talking on the, we have colleagues on the 250, the countywide 250 committee that are definitely using our both digital and physical location of our Prince George's history collections and room. And that's some place where information can sit, you know, that we've been developing a space for it. So I imagine he's been talking about that. I should talk to him more. We just briefly talked, but yeah, something to consider is where to store this information.
That's a really good point, because we've only mentioned it to Professor McElrath following the Black History Month program. So I think having that conversation about what's possible, where to house it, would be good to have once we have him join us and to help come up with some ideas. I don't know if the university might have funding for this, but if that's a factor, it's certainly a question we could pose to him as well. But I appreciate that background, because I hadn't connected the dots on that other project, but there's definitely some synergy here. Yeah. Any other thoughts from the group or ideas on things that we would want to include? And if not, we can circle back next month and really start building out our list.
Yeah, Mayor, I'll get the, I was just trying to look in my calendar to see when the next meeting with Megan and them is. I don't see one scheduled, but I'll check in to make sure that we got all that stuff. And I know the other thing is the Academy, the Citizens Academy, which I think you're gonna talk about next. So that's the next big project, right?
I think
Or is that part of everything?
Oh no, there was also mention of existing video content utilization, maybe from the May event at the Bostwick House.
Right.
And Ms. Green offered to be a resource there if we need help editing. So I think that still just requires more conversation and connecting with Professor Linebaugh to see if that would be something he's willing to partner with us on. So I think we just have to reach out to him to get that conversation going with him, Ms. Green.
Yeah, I saw him last week and I forgot to mention it. So I will send him an email on that specifically, and I'll copy you, Renee, and Ray on that one, so we can get that started. Because I did see him and we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, I've tried to contact him a couple of times. We do have a lot of the Boswick, you know, filmed on that. We did the outside and then the second and third floor. We still have to do the first floor video and also the back part of the Boswick property. I did go to the archives last week with my assistant, the Maryland Archives, and we did obtain, you know, some great information. It's just so amazing. If you ever have the chance, I know I'm a nerd, so I'm, you know, step back, but and that's okay because we need them. But it was so interesting to sit and look at some of the forms from 1733 and the beginning of the history of Bladensburg and the records of the property. Every year you had to list all your property, how many cows you had, whatever you had. And it was just so, it was very, very interesting to be looking at that. And so I just thought that was fascinating. But we are working on things on the back end. And I look forward to working with them in the future. And hopefully we can get that before the winter. It would be nice to get that processed, you know, before winter time. So I'll keep you posted on that. And if you could put a little bug in his ear to give me a call, that would be awesome too. Oh, and with the history of the tavern, and I forget what lady it was that owned that, but apparently Charles Peale, which is a famous painter, loved to hang out there.
Mm.
That was his favorite little restaurant and tavern.
That is interesting. So it was Margaret Adams.
Margaret Adams, that's right.
Yes.
It was Margaret
Yes.
Adams. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yep.
So that's all great to hear, Miss Green. And yeah, Michelle will get you connected with Don so we can get things going there. And that seems like a reasonable timeline to get this going before year end into a good place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So and we're working on pictures and everything and a lot to go along with that. So
Perfect.
it's working.
Awesome. But I know what you mean. You can get lost once you start looking at records and going back. I had a chance I was on the road between last week and the week prior and got to get away to see my dad for a couple of days between business meetings. And we spent some time on Ancestry going back through and ended up, I think we got back to the 1700s, and we only went back a couple of generations to find like a Confederate soldier was in our family history, which was surprising, from Mississippi, of all places. I had no idea I had roots there, but it's like once you uncover one little
Yeah.
leaf or clue, and then you start looking at the newspaper readings, 3 hours can go by and you look up and you're going, oh my gosh, I've got other things I have to get to, but it's just fascinating. So you are not a nerd, you are curious and interested in learning. That is how I look at it. And you know, the word nerd, honestly, it's a positive thing. The world
That
is run by very smart people who may consider themselves nerds, and that's okay.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Mhm.
But thank you for that. Miss White, did you have something to share?
Just my the roommate I had when I first moved here in 2004 works for the Library of Congress Department of Geography and Maps. And I have to check in with her whether she took early retirement or not in the current situation that we know with the feds. But the maps that they have is just incredible. And so what I wanted to do for my own house is be able to describe, where this neighborhood was, et cetera. And also that would be a resource for people. So I'm going to check that out between now and the next meeting.
That is great. I'm glad you mentioned that because that would be very interesting to see those historical maps to help inform us of what was before any of us were here, and just to provide that additional context. It's funny you mentioned that because late last night, one of the residents who lives close to the town hall park was telling me he saw a picture from when he was a little boy and his grandfather lived in the same house he resides in. And the background was what's currently the David C. Harrington Park, but it was woods at the time. And the town hall was this tiny little building, and right next to it was a tiny little police station with this wooded area right next to it. So again, just seeing pictures and maps and things, it just really helps to inform us and educate and remind us of who is here, how the town was constructed prior to any of us getting here. And it just adds a different level of education and appreciation. All right. So I think one of the last few updates is that last time around I shared that I had drafted a civics academy curriculum because we want to start holding these classes starting in 2026 to educate the community about their local government, how it works, how it relates to county, state, and federal government, to hopefully create more engagement, but also just to make people more informed about the government that operates and has authority over the community in which they live or work. And so still working to just tighten that up so we can finalize it this fall and have it ready to kick off in January. So Ray, I'm thinking realistically with the busy month of October, if I set a goal of having that ready to go for the council review in November so they can take one last look at it and we consider it approved, do you think that's good timing from a marketing perspective to push out notices to start making people in the community aware to sign up for classes starting in, let's say, mid-January?
I think that's reasonable. Just letting
Okay.
staff know, and you know, from the last council meeting, staff is aware that there's a curriculum being made and classes getting ready to start in possibly January. So I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say the only problem with January, Mayor, always is that it's January and
Yeah.
that everybody is always like they're overwhelmed or they may not. So the other part is maybe that we make an introductory date like January/February and maybe kick it off with something that you're doing for Black History Month, kind of make it an event that you can kind of maybe get the two of them together might be helpful because people might tend to come out to that. And then it's also the introduction to the Civics Academy. It's also a way to celebrate like that culture thing. And maybe that might be a good way because January just always seems rushed and people may not make it in January. So I'm throwing that out there as an idea because of the way that people just are when they come to the new year. Like they want to go to the gym for the first time and then all that gym stuff ends by the end of the month. Everybody's all done with it. They've stopped eating vegetarian. They've, gone back to cake and cookies and they're ready in February to resume. But I'm just saying it to say like not the January that getting the council to approve it in November or December is good enough, but I just thought maybe if you could link it with something that people may come to and maybe see the professor as well as maybe one of your kickoffs, that might be good because that might be something that would then give you a little time too. And because at the end of the year, you've got your swearing in and all these kinds of things. I know you don't, it's like in November, November, December. So I'm just giving you that grace too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was thinking because we want to try to do 2 courses or 2 cohorts, and just with everything else, the later the start means we're bleeding into
the new year.
summer
Yeah.
and trying to avoid that. So I'm thinking like a mid to late January
Last week in
start, like
January.
even if it's even
Okay.
if it's the week of the 20th or 27th, and then it gives us time to recuperate after the holidays, remind people of this, maybe visit the schools, the high schools to make the students aware of and talk to some of the government classes and let them know if they sign up, we'll give community service hours as long as the school is okay with it. So it gives us a little bit of time
A little
of
push.
recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, so there's a break in between session 1 and when we want to kick off session 2. Because ideally, if we want to recognize folks at the July 2nd event, we just want to make sure we can get both cohorts through in advance of that July 2nd date.
Okay. No, I agree. I get it. It's like I just wanted to kind of give you some time for so late January is probably best. I just didn't think about January. That's what I don't want to do it
it's a
before
hard
Martin Luther
month.
King Day.
Yeah, it's a hard month. It
It
really
is a hard month.
So, okay, well,
Can I ask, is the curriculum going to be available in English and also for Spanish speakers? Is that
we
an
talked
option?
about that. Yeah, we talked about that, Ms. White. Thank you for raising that question. And for the initial kickoff, we talked about doing that in English only just to see what the participation is like, and then working on the translation. So when we do the second cohort, we have that available as well. And because we just want to pilot first to get some data.
Reasonable. Yeah, just have it as a goal.
Yeah, because honestly, I don't want to put too much pressure on translating everything now and not really having any data around what is the interest level. Because also I know that we hear from, or it's always assumed, I should say, that we're going to translate to Spanish, but we have a good number of French speaking immigrants as well who sometimes feel slighted that Spanish is always considered and they feel left out. So that's why I said, let's be careful. Let's start with English the first session. And then as we're promoting it and highlighting it, see the interest level from others, because we may have to translate to 2 languages for that second session, which is not a bad thing. That's a great problem to have, but we want to get some data around the interest and also lessons learned for people to say, well, this was not as interesting. I think you spent too much time on this section versus telling us more about X. So we have some information that we can help to reshape and make those corrections before going into getting the translation support.
Okay.
But I think that was everything for today, other than
I just have one question.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ray.
Do you have the name of the resident that had the picture of the park and the police station and town hall?
I don't know his last name, but he's our neighbor.
Oh, right next door?
Okay.
Yes, right next
Yeah,
door.
yeah, we can, I know what you're talking about.
Yes,
Ray,
we
I
can
did
go-
ask him
We can
for
walk
a
over. I know
copy.
exactly who we're talking about. Yeah.
All right.
Yes,
Because
He
his dad,
came back.
he built the second house. His dad had the original house
Hmm.
right next door. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Oh.
I don't know his name either, but I know him and I've seen him, so we can get it from him.
Yeah, it would
Okay.
be nice. It would be nice to have that picture.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I
share
did
that with
ask
me
him.
too.
Yeah, so I did ask if we could get a copy of it, and he said his grandfather is more prominent in it and the woods are in the background, but I said that's fine. We just want if you can make us a copy and drop it off, or if you guys stop by the house and just remind him, because it was just last night that we had this conversation at like 8:30. So yeah,
All
that'll
right.
be
Thank you.
great. Yeah, of course. Well, were there any other ideas or questions that we didn't cover that folks wanted to share?
No, I think it's good. I was like,
Okay.
I didn't realize I wasn't on mute.
Good. Well, thank you all so much. And then Ray and Michelle will help us get our next meeting scheduled so we can hopefully make some progress on these ideas and come back with updates and incorporate Professor McElrath and his colleague Joni from the history department at UMD so we can make some progress on those projects that relate to them specifically as well. All right.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you all. Have a
Okay.
great rest of your day.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.